Voluntary offseason program starts. Devonta Smith signs an extension. What does this mean for Brandon Aiyuk, who actually did show up today to voluntary workout? Let's talk about it. Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte. I'm Jason Aponte. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for when we go live. Bully Ball tomorrow, a lot of content coming down, but let's talk about it. Devonta Smith gets a 3-year extension, $75 million, 50 guaranteed. And I want to preface this discussion by talking about why the Eagles felt the need to make an extension offer to Smith when he has another year to play, which his contract goes up from a measly $1 million to $15.5 million on his original contract. That's going to stay. This extension would be right after that. I actually want to applaud the Eagles a little bit because what they're doing is they're getting out in front of the negotiations for that draft class. Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle. Now, it seems as a annual value, you're getting Devonta Smith for $25 million a year, and that's going to be a steal for a top 10 pick because Jamar Chase is going to get more than that. I think we know how this works. When you see one receiver get something, the next receiver wants more, the next receiver wants more. I don't really equate what happened today with Devonta Smith's extension to Brandon Aiyuk for a few reasons. One, the Eagles are just being proactive. And that deal, if Devonta Smith continues to produce the way that he has, that deal is going to look like a steal, especially in the coming years, right? Unless Devonta Smith wants to rework it, you can think about that later on. But as of right now, it stands 25 per at this point with 50 guaranteed. So that's a steal for a guy that's a top 10 pick, former Heisman winner, guy who's produced very well. So I think that is the part that I'm most impressed with. But with Ayuk, he's on a 5th-year deal. And Ayuk is not looking at this as, well, he got this. I think Ayuk was already looking for 25 at least to start the conversation per year, right? 25 to 30, possibly 32. That's your sweet spot for Brandon Aiyuk. It's never, well, oh, wow, Devonta Smith got 25, that now the idea is in Brandon Ayuk's head that he was already aiming for that. So this has little to no bearing on Brandon Aiyuk, in my opinion. Realistically, Brandon Aiyuk was already looking for that. Now he can just say, hey, this is a guy who has one less year in the league than I do. They have very similar numbers in a bunch of categories, and I'll go over that and give you and contextualize that. Obviously, Brandon Aiyuk has an extra year, 12 games on him. But Brandon Aiyuk was already looking at that. And I think the thought process that Devonta Smith's extension means something bad for Brandon Aiyuk when Brandon Aiyuk is realistically monitoring what happens with CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, and T. Higgins because they're all in the same boat. Today was voluntary offseason, I believe the first day. It's all voluntary workouts. Brandon Aiyuk was there. CeeDee Lamb didn't show up. Justin Jefferson didn't show up. And that's nothing to say because it's voluntary. But if a guy who was so disgruntled, supposedly wanted a trade, which the agent shot down, is so worried about this, won't go to training camp, why would he show up to voluntary workouts? Again, I think this is a little bit overblown. And I want to go down some of the numbers really quick, especially when it comes to what Brandon Aiyuk is owed. So Brandon Aiyuk's 5th-year option is going to pay him $14,124,000 fully guaranteed. But obviously, we believe and we doubt that he'll play on this 5th-year option. But that's what it would be if he wanted to. Guarantee the 49ers are going to try to get this extended. And again, when you look at the track record, it's usually before training camp, and they have some extra money coming out on 6-2 after Eric Armstead's money gets cleared out. So that $25 million is a sweet spot, I feel like, for Aiyuk. 25, 30. Like, I'm not going to blame Brandon Aiyuk for saying, I want 30 now. I think that's fair, especially when you look at what the other things are going to happen and the other dominoes that need to fall in terms of what does CeeDee Lamb get? What does Justin Jefferson get, right? And I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but I think that Brandon Aiyuk and Devonta Smith are in the same tier of receivers in that 10 to 17 range, right? I definitely can't fix my mouth to say that he's better than Justin Jefferson. I don't think I could fix my mouth to say he's better than CeeDee Lamb either. So while we're monitoring what CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson do, I don't think it would be wise for Brandon Aiyuk to point to them and say, I want more than what they've gotten. Consider the offense. Consider the target distribution. Just consider who else is around. I don't know if those are the things that are going to push Brandon Aiyuk into, well, I want more than him and I want more than this guy. I don't think he's better than CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson. I just don't. I think he's better than Devonta Smith. Absolutely. I think the numbers are striking. I think what Devonta Smith has done in his little time as an Eagle is great, but there's more to playing receiver than that. We obviously know that Aiyuk is a superior blocker when it comes to being a wide receiver. So let's just go down the numbers with Aiyuk and Smith. 62 games played, obviously a full season extra for Brandon Aiyuk to Devonta Smith's 50. Devonta Smith has 240 receptions in 50 games. Brandon Aiyuk has 269. That means he has 29 more receptions in 12 more games. Let's contextualize it. The 49ers don't run the ball. I mean, all they do is run the ball. Remember the doghouse. It's a little bit of, you have to understand the situations to properly put it, because if you're going off raw numbers, you'll look at that and say, well, look, in 12 last games, look how close he is. But I think we all know what makes BA special and what he's gone through in his career. 3,931 receiving yards to 3,178. So on 29 more receptions, he has about 800 yards more than Devonta Smith. That's impressive. That's what we're talking about. Brandon Aiyuk is one of the most efficient receivers in the game. That's why he ended up with as many yards as he had last season, despite being at the end of the targets list for wide receivers. Just imagine if Brandon Aiyuk got the amount of targets that Devonta Smith gets. You could see the numbers going up, even if his efficiency goes down. Yards per reception, 14.6 for Brandon Aiyuk, 13.2 for Devonta Smith. 25 receptions, touchdown receptions for Brandon Aiyuk, 19 for Devonta Smith. So the numbers are similar. The numbers are very similar. The numbers are very similar. But if we're talking about the tier, they're in the same tier. I believe Aiyuk is better, but $25 million is what gets the conversation started. And it wasn't because Devonta Smith signed that deal. Brandon Aiyuk didn't see that and say, oh, wow, I didn't think we were going to get to 25. No, that's what they were starting with. They'll get there in that range. And we have to remember, how is this contract going to be figured out? How is it going to be structured? Will it be, do you allow him to play on the 5th year for that $14 million and then it kicks in the next year? Do you start it this year? I don't know how you construct it. I know that any sort of extension actually opens up more salary cap for the 49ers for one more year. But the way it's structured, depending on how they stagger the money, is how you'll be able to look forward to who they'll be able to keep and who they won't. Bottom line, I think Brandon Aiyuk is better than Devonta Smith. I think they're in the same tier, but I think Aiyuk is better than Smith because there's more to playing football than catching the football, and we know what Brandon Aiyuk can do in the run game. And we all are 49ers fans who watch this team be at the bottom of the league in passing attempts, see him get the least amount of targets, but he put up monster numbers last year. If you even see a small increase in targets, in passing attempts, think about the numbers that Aiyuk will put up. I think there's more to raw numbers, and that's why raw numbers are a piece of the puzzle, but contextualizing everything that goes on in terms of offense, who else is getting the ball, how often they throw it, that's when you get to your overall evaluation. So I see numbers being pulled up of the same time in the league that Aiyuk and Smith have been in the league. Smith's a baller, no doubt. Smith has done some amazing things since he joined the league. But we all know what goes on with Brandon Aiyuk. Second year, it took him about 4 or 5 full games before he actually started getting the ball again because he was in the doghouse, let alone the fact that the 49ers don't throw the ball much. And then you see the progression. So it's not just as easy to say, well, look at the raw numbers. He's got to be better. I don't know. I don't really think that that's true. I don't. I think you have to contextualize everything. If you want to make the argument that Smith is better than Aiyuk, I'll listen, but I won't agree. I'll listen. I think you have an argument, but I don't agree. I do not agree. So Smith's extension isn't something where Brandon Ayuk's like, oh man, I didn't. Well, now I can get 25. That was what he was aiming for, regardless. He was in that range, regardless. 25, 27, 29. Is he going to get CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson money? I don't think so. I don't think that he should, in my opinion. I think both of those guys are better, and I think Justin Jefferson's the best in the world. So what you look at is the draft class and what the Eagles just did. They're literally kicking out this money to Devonta Smith right now to avoid the Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase arms race in terms of contract, right? Who signs first? Who does this? Who does that? I think you're watching this play out right now, and I think whenever you see something like that, I forget who it was. Oh, when Jerry Jeudy signed with the Browns, I think that's much more troubling, in my opinion, than a Devonta Smith extension that I think he's worth. I think seeing Jerry Jeudy have the lack of production that he's had, to see the Cleveland Browns kick out that amount of money to Jerry Jeudy is far more troubling to me than a Devonta Smith extension. That is far more troubling to me. Jerry Jeudy has not done anything in this league to warrant that type of money. Leave it to the Cleveland Browns to always overpay, to ruin the market. That's far more troubling than Devonta Smith's extension. This really feels fine. This number is fine. He's done enough in this league in his short time to warrant it. This is the price of doing business as a wide receiver. But I don't think it affects Brandon Aiyuk in a way where he's now, well, now I want this much, because I don't think he can ask for this much more than Devonta Smith, even though I believe he is better than Devonta Smith, and I think a lot of people would agree. So 28, 29, maybe 30. That's fine. That's fine. And I think he already was going to start at 25. So I'm not exactly worried about this. But it is a slow time for content, and we do at least have something legitimate to talk about, which is this. But I'm not gonna panic about this one. Okay. The Brandon Ayuk thing is gonna work itself out, whether we'll figure it out again. I say the 20th pick is where you stop worrying with the 49ers in terms of will he be traded on draft day. That's where the Steelers pick. Obviously people are throwing out the Buffalo Bills, but to get pick 28 for him and then keep 31 and get it, just that one I don't really see happening. I don't see that one happening. So pick 20, I believe, is where it stops. After that, once pick 20 goes off the board, you might as well forget about Brandon Ayuk being traded. And then we can just get back to the extension being closer to training camp, as it usually is. 6-2 is when Eric Armstead's money comes off. It's when you can really start getting to the number that you want to. And it's all going to come down to how they construct this contract. How are you going to stagger this money? How much up front? How much down the line? I doubt he'll take a backloaded deal, but restructures happen all the time. You can find a way to kick the can down the road, as they've done a bunch of times, even though it's put them in a position where they are right now and where you have to move on from Eric Armstead and such like that. But I I really don't feel too worried about this playing out, because once the 20th pick comes off the board and the Pittsburgh Steelers select someone, then I think we're in the clear in terms of a trade. And then it just turns into June 2nd is where you'll start to get this rolling. You start to see the conversations going into July, right before training camp. That's when you actually get to a place where someone will sign. Will it take as long as it did for Nick Bosa? I don't think so. Will it take as long as it did for Deebo Samuel? I don't think so. But they do have all that time, and they still have put themselves in a position where they can, because they have this extra money coming up. It's all going to boil down to how they construct this contract. 15 minutes in, make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for when we go live. A lot of content coming down the line this week. Headed to the NFL draft next week, so I will be in Detroit. If something happens, I will be going live from the media workroom. We're going to figure this out together, guys. Again, Brandon Aiyuk follows the team. We've seen this playbook before, not just from Deebo Samuel, from many people. And it's just the way things work. But Brandon Aiyuk being at the voluntary workouts today is a very good sign. It's a very good sign. And he didn't even have to. He didn't even have to, right? I'm not going to kill CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson for not going, but they didn't have to go. And they want to get paid. and they definitely will. I think what's interesting is the T. Higgins saga. T. Higgins is playing on a franchise tag, and remember, requested a trade, far apart. Where have I heard that from? That was literally what they were just saying about Brandon Aiyuk. And obviously, the agent comes out and refutes the trade part. But T. Higgins formally requested a trade. Then he goes to his camp and he says, I see myself being a Cincinnati Bengal. This thing is so fluid. It goes through the motions. You want to scare the team by having, the trade request or, scrubbing your Instagram, all those things. It's like, honestly, it doesn't make sense to get worked up on things that have been the playbook for nearly every single player that's wanted to get paid. Defensive players, wide receivers, quarterbacks, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And yes, DeForest Buckner did get paid today. Shout out to him, man. That's good. I love that. But this isn't something to get worked up about, right? Like this isn't something to lose sight of. I think a lot of the people that are upset with this tactic just are upset with the tactic itself, not the player that's doing it, right? A lot of people are just like, oh, shut up and let your contract negotiate. No, the agents are telling you, let's put some pressure on them. Take all that 49ers stuff off there. Let's put some pressure on them. Unfollow them. Like, let's put some pressure on them. Let's say that we want to trade. That this is the advice he's getting. Brandon Ayuk's not going off the rails and doing things that his team is not behind. And Deebo Samuel definitely said, I'm going to help mentor him through this. Well, what did Deebo Samuel do? And what did Deebo Samuel get? The bag. So, if it worked for me, it could work for you. And I think that's what Deebo Samuel's saying. Otherwise, Devonta Smith's extension does not change what Brandon Aiyuk was looking for. He was looking in that range regardless. If he wants to get spicy now and say, listen, I want 30 now, then that's fine. That's fine. 30. Fine. You think you're that much better than Devonta Smith? I'm not going to argue with you. But it was always going to be in that 25, 28 range. Always. Whether Devonta Smith signed or not. Because that's what he's worth. That's the price of doing business. I don't think he's going to get CeeDee Lamb money. I don't think he's going to get Justin Jefferson money. That's fine. He doesn't have to. I told you I've got him in that tier of 10 to 17. And Devonta Smith is in that tier. But he's better than Devonta Smith because he does more than catch the football. And their offenses are completely different. So for me, it's nothing to really worry about. Today, when you hear that this money comes out, I was way more worried about what Jerry Jeudy got from the Cleveland Browns than I was what Devonta Smith just signed for, which is going to look like a steal down the line after Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle go to get paid. The Eagles are very smart. They got this done now. He can play one more year, and then it kicks in after that. That's when the extension kicks in. For me, it's good business. The Eagles continue to do good business. And that was a smart move because you don't want to get into that race with, well, Jamar got this, Waddle got this, I produce more than Waddle. That's the part. Is he can look at Jalen Waddle and say, I've done more than Jalen Waddle. He got 25. I want 30. No, you just get it done now if you can. And the Eagles did. And now you don't have to worry about any of that. Now you let Miami overpay. Now you let Cincinnati pay Jamar Chase the bag, and he deserves it. I think he's incredible. But this isn't the same thing that you're going against, like in terms of comparison. Draft class, completely different. What you're looking at here with Aiyuk, the situations he should be monitoring more. T. Higgins, what does he get whenever he gets extended? And, where do I want to fall behind in terms of Lamb and Jefferson? Like, where do I want my contract to sit with those guys? I think a lot of these guys are very realistic. You're going to try your best to get as much money as you can because you deserve it. But if you look at it and you see that Justin Jefferson, who's put up some of the best numbers that anybody's ever put up in their first 4 seasons as a wide receiver, is about to get a bag, do you think you deserve more than him? I don't think you do. And I think deep down they know that. So if Justin Jefferson gets 40, I don't think Brandon Aiyuk's going to say, I want 38. Right? I think he knows where he should be, and I think he's still going to make a ton of money. But it's going to come down to, again, what Mike Tannenbaum told me when I asked him about this situation. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are going to have to sit in that room, and they're going to have to think about can't not have players and nice to have players. And where does Brandon Aiyuk fall in that? So the only way that you can kind of see this going weird is if, well, not weird. Well, I guess I mean it like this. Like the 49ers select, let's say the 49ers select a wide receiver in the first round. Let's say Adonai Mitchell. Right? You get Adonai Mitchell at 31. Now you sign Ayuk. So now who are we pushing out the door? Probably Debo Samuel, right? And that's where the wheeling and dealings have gotten a little bit interesting here because it feels like the 49ers are prepping you for a loss and it doesn't feel like they want it to be Brandon Ayuk. Because one thing we know about Brandon is he can get himself open. He gets schemed open as well too, and that's the beauty of Shanahan's system. But Brandon's the one who can beat press. Brandon's the one who can beat zones. He's a great route runner. He's a technician. No slight at Debo Samuel. But it feels like if the 49ers take a wide receiver in the first round or maybe top of the second, they're kind of telling you that they're gonna get it done with Brandon and they're gonna find a way to move Debo. There's going to be teams lined up to get Debo, I think. And Debo's an incredible football player. That's why everybody's in the draft looking for the next Debo. But I don't really think that Devonta Smith's extension really changed anything with Brandon Aiyuk and his camp and what they were looking for. I think they were looking for something in that same range. And I think that's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. So you draft a receiver, a good guy, you get yourself in a Donnie Mitchell. That's crazy if you get him there at 31. And then he plays for a little. And then when you make the move, boom, you insert him in there and he's young. This is really what a lot of people are subscribing to when it comes to wide receivers and overall roster construction and the players themselves. Let someone else pay him, draft someone cheaper. The problem with that is when you have a known commodity, when you have someone that you know is good, they deserve their money, and then you're rolling the dice that the next guy rolls in behind him and does similar things. That's risky. But in a perfect world, play him for the 4 years, trade him on the fifth year, draft the guy behind him, and do it all over again. It's not a perfect world. Perfect scenarios rarely exist, but there are a lot of people that subscribe to that whole idea. I necessarily don't because I'm very much a what do I know versus what I project type of thing, and the risk cannot be too great in terms of well, he was a great wide receiver. We're going to replace him with another wide receiver and hope that it's the same thing. I don't think that you can do that confidently. Yeah, and the doghouse is inevitable for sure. But yeah, it's something where it sounds good in practice. It sounds real good in practice. Hey, 4 years, no problem. We'll trade him. Someone else will pay him, and then we'll just draft another guy and he'll do the same thing. Will he? Do you hope so? Right? Like, or do you know so? That's the part that I have a little bit of trouble with, and I'm struggling with. Bottom line, though, and I've said it a few times, and shout out to everybody that's in here. I know you guys are watching the WNBA draft and doing other stuff. Thank you guys for tuning in on a Monday. Bottom line is Devonta Smith's extension doesn't mean anything in terms of changing what Brandon Ayuk was already going to ask for because he was already going to be in that 25 and up range. It doesn't really change anything. What made me more worried was what Jerry Jeudy got because Jerry Jeudy could look at Jerry Jeudy's numbers and say, "Hey, I need double that because he's never done anything in this league. I need double that." That's scary. With Devonta Smith again, the Eagles are protecting themselves from having to pay all the. Yes, everybody's watching the WNBA draft. Yes, everyone is watching the WNBA draft. It's baseball season. People aren't watching the Giants. Nobody's watching baseball. Yes, they are. They are. I don't understand what's the big deal with that. A lot of people are excited to see about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Women's basketball they took over. There's no more. Nobody cares about NCAA men anymore. People are definitely watching that because you definitely aren't watching the San Francisco Giants, and you definitely aren't watching baseball. And there's no basketball tonight. People are definitely tuned into the WNBA draft. It's a fact. I'm watching my Yankees because they're good. Of course, I'm watching my Yankees. I'm watching my Yankees because they're good. Everybody else isn't watching their teams because they're not as happy. I'm very happy. But other people are watching the WNBA draft. It's true. It's just a fact. Regardless, today, nothing happened today that was going to change what happens with Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk showed up today. Justin Jefferson didn't. CeeDee Lamb didn't. That's it. So now it just turns into Aiyuk being there and now being actually present everybody's going to be there literally now just working out. And now it just turns into, hey, let's get this thing done as after the draft's over. And I think he has the expectation that once the draft is over, then things will really ramp up. I don't think he does anything for his stock or his negotiation by not showing up. I think if anything, it's a sign of good faith and kind of makes him look a lot better. And then we'll get this thing done and, we'll start in June, once this Eric Armstead money comes off and then you get closer to training camp. So I'm not going to take up too much more of your time. I didn't really have too much more than that. If you want to read a little bit more about what I said about this move and what it means for Brandon Aiyuk, check out NinersNation.com. I wrote an article on there. But otherwise, again, guys, this is just the cost of doing business in the league. The Eagles are very proactive, and now they don't have to worry about whether Jamar Chase or Jalen Waddle is going to reset the market for a Devonta Smith extension. I think right now everything feels fine. Nothing changed. They're two separate situations. I think the biggest point of contention with this is all the Eagles fans telling us that Devonta Smith is so much better than Brandon Aiyuk. I don't think that's true at all. I don't. I think they're in the same tier. I think Brandon Aiyuk is better because there is more to playing receiver than catching the football. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for when we go live. Bully Ball tomorrow. State of the franchise later during the week. And next week, I'll be out in Detroit covering the draft as well, too. So I'll catch up with you guys then. Have a great rest of your night. Enjoy your family and everything. And we'll talk soon. Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte.